Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening up some really interesting sources that take a fresh look at one of the, well, quieter months on the Hebrew calendar, Cheshvan. And for this year, 5786, Cheshvan starts at sundown on Thursday, October 23rd, 2025, and it runs through to sundown Wednesday, November 19th, just 29 days.
Right. And, for anyone familiar with the biblical calendar, Cheshvan is a bit of a puzzle. It's the 8th month, and it often gets this nickname, Mar Cheshvan.
Mar Cheshvan. Bitter Cheshvan. Why bitter?
Well, precisely because it's the only month on the entire biblical calendar without any major appointed feasts or fasts, nothing. It's just this silence right after all the intensity and celebration of the fall feasts like soup grab.
Okay. So it feels like a gap, maybe, a spiritual vacancy. But the devotional sources we're diving into today, they argue something different. They say the silence isn't empty. It's actually like intentional design.
Exactly.
So our mission here is to unpack that interpretation. How do these sources reframe Cheshvan? Turn it from, potentially bitter or vacant into a really purposeful time. They call it hidden preparation and sealed grace.
That's the core idea. And it really starts with the symbolism packed into the month itself. The name Cheshvan, some trace it back to Akkadian Warach Shamnu.
Warach Shamnu. What does that mean?
It means 8th month, or maybe month of oil. But that number 8 is really key. Biblically, 7 is completion, the Sabbath, the weekly cycle. 8 always points beyond that. It signals new beginnings, covenant renewal, even resurrection life.
Ah, okay. So the 8th month's vacancy isn't emptiness, it's potential. Held open.
Held open, exactly. The sources suggest it's reserved. Reserved for God's new work to begin and maybe ultimately held for Messiah's future unveiling. The silence is pregnant, not passive.
Okay, I like that framing. But you can't just invent a theme for a month, right?
Yeah.
There have to be historical anchors. What scriptural events actually happened in Cheshvan that ground this idea of hidden preparation?
Good question. The sources point to 2 massive anchors, foundational stories. First, and maybe the most obvious one, is Noah's Ark, the flood narrative in Genesis.
Right.
Noah enters the ark on the 10th of Cheshvan, and then the flood itself actually begins on the 17th of Cheshvan. But here's the insight they pull out. The flood isn't just about judgment, it's framed as a radical new beginning.
How so?
They highlight this amazing prophetic connection. The ark, carrying the seeds of the new world, eventually comes to rest. Guess when?
I don't know offhand.
On the 17th of Nisan.
Wait, Nisan 17th, that's a traditional date for...
Jesus' resurrection, exactly.
Wow. Okay, hold on. So 17 Cheshvan is when the ark is sealed and the waters rise, providing protection. And then 17 Nisan, 6 months later, is resurrection life springing forth.
That's the typology they draw out. It connects the sealed grace of Cheshvan directly to the ultimate glory revealed in Nisan, preparation linked to manifestation across the calendar.
That's powerful. Okay, what's the second anchor?
The second one involves Solomon's temple. According to 1 Kings 6.38, the actual construction of the temple was finished in Cheshvan, the 8th month.
Finished in Cheshvan. Okay. So the dedication must have happened right then. A big celebration.
Well, that's the twist. No, the huge public dedication ceremony, the bringing in of the Ark of the Covenant, that happened earlier, during Sukkot in the 7th month, Tishrei.
That seems backward. You finish the most important building in the nation, God's house, and then you wait to celebrate. Why?
The sources interpret this as a key principle. Quiet completion before public unveiling. It's like God doing the essential unseen work first. In your life, it's the hidden foundations, the wiring, the plumbing, all that has to be solid before the grand opening. Cheshvan, they argue, is that season for the internal infrastructure work, done in quiet.
Okay, that really clarifies things. So the core themes emerging are these new beginnings, this hidden preparation, and also letting go of the past.
Yes, letting go is crucial. You can't build on rubble.
Right. And that's where this devotional structure really gets interesting, doesn't it? It uses all these layers of symbolism to guide you through that letting go process.
Absolutely. The source material employs this multidimensional structure. It weaves together Hebraic cosmology, tribal assignments, constellations, all to create a kind of rhythm for what they call spiritual alignment during the month.
Okay, let's break that down. The tribe assigned to Cheshvan.
It's Manasseh.
Manasseh. And his name means?
God has made me forget my toil.
So right away, the assignment is about release.
Exactly. Release, healing, finding elevation through forgiveness. If Cheshvan is about laying a new foundation, you actively have to choose to forget, or rather, release the power of the old wounds, the toil, the failures. They even connect this to the physical body, linking Manasseh to the digestive system.
The digestive system, how does that fit?
It's about processing. This is the time, they suggest, to really digest the spiritual food you took in during the fall feasts, process the revelations, maybe even process the disappointments, and eliminate the waste. Make internal space.
Okay, process and purge. Makes sense. And complementing that internal emotional work is the constellation, which is a...
Scorpio
or Arkruf.
in Hebrew.
Scorpio, that sounds intense.
It is intense, and the source doesn't shy away from that at all. Scorpio represents transformation, but specifically transformation that comes through confrontation. Necessary intensity.
Confrontation with what?
With the things holding you back. Fear, deception, maybe spiritual stagnation or chaos. It's framed as a call to step into your spiritual authority. They often reference Luke 10:19 here, the power Jesus gives to tread on serpents and scorpions.
So the intensity isn't meant to crush you, but to refine you by facing things head on.
Precisely. You confront to overcome. You tread upon those things. The pressure is part of the process of rising above.
Got it. And then there's the Hebrew letter for the month?
The letter is Nun.
None. What does that symbolize?
Nun means seed or sprout, or sometimes faithful one. It beautifully reinforces that theme of hidden potential, like a seed buried in the ground. You can't see the growth yet, but life is powerfully at work beneath the surface. Hidden but active.
Hidden but active. I like
Yeah.
that. Seed, sprout. Fits perfectly with new beginnings.
And they even tie in the numerology of the specific year, 5786. Briefly, 5 is Hey God's breath, spirit. 7 is Zain the sword, discernment, cutting edge. 8 is Chet, new beginnings, life. And 6 is Vav, connection, the nail that joins.
So 5786, breath, sword, new beginnings, connection.
Yeah, the interpretation suggests the assignment for this year involves divine connection enabling new beginnings, forged through God's spirit and the precision of his word. You see how all these layers, tribe, constellation, letter, number, they all stack up. They reinforce the message that this month's silence is deeply purposeful, not empty at all.
That's a very integrated picture. Now, before we get into the sort of day-by-day process they outline, there's a quick note in the sources about the calendar itself, the timing.
Yes, just a brief mention. They emphasize aligning with a lunar-sighted calendar tradition. They argue that the fixed rabbinic calendar, which was established much later, around 359 CE during Roman times, can sometimes drift from the actual visible signs in the heavens mentioned in places like Psalm 104.
Okay, so for our purposes, we just need to know this devotional guides us based on observable lunar timing, day by day.
Correct. And that leads us right into the practical application. If Cheshvan isn't about feasts and festivals, but about purpose days and silent obedience, what does that actually look like? How do you do Cheshvan according to this model?
Yeah, what's the roadmap?
They use the story of Noah, specifically the progression of events in Cheshvan, as a kind of 4-stage guide for you, the listener.
Okay, and the big theme seems to be resisting that need for immediate results or recognition. Alignment over applause, as they say. So stage 1 starts on day 1, Cheshvan 1.
Day 1 is themed Unseen Preparation. It draws directly from Genesis 6.22. Noah did everything, just as God commanded him. He built the ark before there was any physical evidence of rain. The skies were likely clear.
So the instruction for us is,
build your ark, whatever specific project, boundary, plan, or spiritual discipline God has put on your heart. Build it now, even if the circumstances seem calm or unthreatening. Do the quiet work of obedience without needing external validation.
just build, even if no one sees or understands. Okay. That takes faith. What happens next? Day 10.
Day 10 marks a shift. It's called Covenant Sealed. This is when Noah and his family actually entered the ark. And the critical detail from Genesis 7.16 is that after they were inside, the Lord himself shut the door. God closed it.
Ah, not Noah. God sealed it.
Right, so the focus shifts from human building effort to divine closure and protection. The lesson here is about stepping fully into the boundaries God has set for your protection and trusting him to close doors on past seasons or old ways. You have to surrender control of that door.
Surrendering control. That's a big step. Letting God seal off what needs to be left behind. Okay, so you build, you enter, God seals. Then comes the storm, right?
Okay.
Day 17.
Day 17, the floodgates open. This is when the flood began, Genesis 7.11. And yes, this sounds like maybe the hardest part, but the instruction here changes dramatically. It's no longer about building the vessel. If you did the work on day 1 and surrendered control on day 10,
Then what?
Then the instruction is to rise with the flood. The rising waters aren't there to destroy you. They become the very means of your deliverance and elevation. The flood lifts the ark above the old world. So the intensity, the pressure, it serves to lift you if you're properly prepared and positioned inside God's provision.
Wow, okay. So the thing that looks like destruction is actually the mechanism for promotion that reframes intensity completely.
Beautifully put. The pressure becomes the power source.
So how does this intense month conclude? We get to day 29, the end of Cheshvan.
Day 29 represents the threshold of transformation. It mirrors Noah sending out the dove from the ark later in the story. This brings it all back to that Manasseh theme, releasing the past, forgetting the toil, and preparing for the new. Noah didn't just jump out when the rain stopped. He tested the ground, sought confirmation.
So the end of the month isn't necessarily bursting out, but preparing for release, discerning the next step.
Exactly. The intense hidden work of Cheshvan is largely complete. Now it's about preparing to step out onto new, dry land, equipped and transformed by the process you just endured in silence. Forget what lies behind, prepare for what's ahead.
That roadmap provides such a practical way to navigate a month that could otherwise feel empty or discouraging. It really emphasizes that idea of quiet faithfulness. I love that quote you mentioned from the source. Don't measure your progress by applause. Measure it by alignment.
That really captures the essence of this whole perspective on Cheshvan. It's the silent month that hides the preparations, seals the ark, builds the hidden foundation. It uses intensity, that Scorpio energy, for transformation. It's a necessary stretch.
A necessary stretch. And as we transition out of this stretching, the sources highlight one final critical piece, right? Something about wineskins.
Yes, the need for a new wineskin. Drawing from Jesus' parable in Luke 5, you can't put new wine into old, brittle wineskins or they'll burst.
So after all this internal work and stretching in Cheshvan, what's the application?
It's the final piece of surrender, really. The sources suggest that the new wine, the new vision, the fresh revelation, the miracles, the open doors of the next season is coming. But the old structures in our own lives, maybe old habits, limiting beliefs, the need to control everything, even religious structures that can't contain fresh movement, those things have to be released. Made pliable. You've built the ark externally. Now ensure the internal vessel, your own spirit and mindset, is flexible enough to hold the new thing God wants to pour out.
That makes perfect sense. You have to become the container for what's next. Which leads us right to the threshold of the coming month. Cheshvan was the quiet work, the intense preparation, the stretching. What's the invitation for the listener as they step out of Cheshvan?
Well, Cheshvan demanded that you build faithfully in the quiet, maybe even in the dark, and stand firm when the storms came. The very next month on the calendar is Kislev. And Kislev is traditionally known as the month of dreams, miracles, and light. Think Hanukkah. It's the spark after the quiet.
Dreams, miracles, and light. That's quite a shift from silent preparation.
It is. The foundation's laid, the internal work's done, the wineskin is hopefully ready. So the provocative question the sources leave you with is this. Having built your silent ark in Cheshvan, having stood through the rising waters, and having prepared the vessel, how will you now position yourself? How will you prepare to receive the dream in the coming darkness of Kislev and then walk forward in the firelight of that new season?